Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into some pretty intense material.
Yeah.
It starts with something that sounds, well, like it's straight out of a thriller novel.
Okay.
It's the alleged contents of a suicide note from a U.S. customs agent. And it apparently details some pretty terrifying plans for American citizens, according to our source material.
Wow. Okay. That's definitely a dramatic place to start. So this deep dive, it's really about unpacking these kinds of claims, right? About government preparedness for, say, a societal collapse.
Exactly, and what that could mean for civil liberties. That's the core of it.
Right. So we'll explore the specific allegations and the info we've gathered. We'll look at historical context, any counter-arguments presented, basically give you the different perspectives.
And the specific information available. It's important we stick just to what the source material says. We're laying out the facts as presented without taking sides here.
Absolutely. That's the mission. Stick to the sources.
Okay, so let's dive into the main narrative. Our material points to this U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Deportation Officer, ICE. The report says he shot himself. This happened at Pier 40 in New York City. And apparently he left behind a very long note.
And this alleged note, it sounds like it contains some really explosive claims.
Very explicit. According to the source, he supposedly wrote things like, "The America I grew up in and cherished has been murdered by its own federal government."
Whoa.
And that our Constitution has become meaningless.
Okay, those are huge statements. What else?
He also alleged that federal law enforcement has been drilling for years, preparing to control riots.
Riots from what?
From a coming financial collapse, widespread bank failures. That's what the note claimed they were anticipating.
And the drills themselves, the note described those.
Yeah, and this is where, it gets really disturbing. The material says the note talked about using life-sized images of American men, even women and children,
Images for what?
whom we are told to shoot for practice and to get used to it.
Get used to shooting images of civilians, women and children.
That's what the alleged note says, according to our source. He also apparently claimed the economy is terminally ill, banks are insolvent, and the FDIC, the agency that insures deposits.
Yeah, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Right. He claimed they don't actually have the funds for bailouts if things went south.
So economic collapse, targeting civilians in drills. What else? This is heavy stuff.
It is. Maybe the most shocking claim relates to detention camps.
Detention camps on U.S. soil.
Yeah. The note supposedly mentions facilities created under the Rex 84 program back in the 1980s.
Rex 84, I've heard of that. Wasn't that some kind of contingency plan? Maybe for detaining undocumented immigrants or handling mass civil disobedience?
That's the context, yeah. But the note allegedly claims these camps will be repurposed.
Repurposed for what?
To imprison American citizens whom the government feels constitute a threat.
Wait, imprisoned citizens deemed a threat? Based on what?
The note doesn't detail the criteria, just the alleged plan. And it gets darker. He claimed these camps are equipped to carry out Hitler-scale killings, an actual purge of American citizens.
A purge. That's an incredibly serious allegation.
Absolutely. And the officer supposedly concluded, "I cannot be party to this."
Understandable, if he believed that was true. Wow. Anything else in this alleged note?
One more significant claim our source mentions, that the U.S. military is being deliberately deployed overseas.
Okay. Why?
The note claims its intentional involvement in foreign fights, specifically to keep them from being available to help Americans domestically if this crisis unfolds.
So keep the military busy elsewhere so they can't intervene at home.
That's the picture painted in this alleged document. It's incredibly grim.
It really is. And these kinds of claims, they don't just appear out of thin air. They often connect to broader conspiracy theories that have been around for a while.
Right. The material we reviewed links this to figures like Alex Jones, for example.
What's the connection there?
Jones and others have claimed FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is basically a front.
A front for what? A secret to government?
Yeah, exactly. And that FEMA's housing sites, the ones they set up after disasters, aren't really for disaster victims.
What are they for then, according to this theory?
They'll supposedly serve as quarantine centers or internment camps. It echoes the claims in the note.
And, when people hear internment camps, history does offer a disturbing precedent here in the U.S.
You mean during World War II?
Exactly. The source material reminds us the U.S. government did force over 100,000 Japanese Americans into government camps.
A truly dark chapter.
It is.
Yeah.
And it shows how, historically, Civil unrest or a perceived domestic emergency could be used to justify extreme measures.
So that historical event is sometimes used to lend credibility to these modern fears.
Precisely. It highlights this ongoing tension, doesn't it, between the government needing to prepare for emergencies and the public's fear of potential overreach, especially when you talk about expanding emergency powers.
And what kind of events do these theorists think might trigger such a scenario, like mass incarceration?
The source material lists a few possibilities theorists mention.
Yeah.
Anything from the creation of a one-world government to a major national pandemic.
A pandemic. That sounds familiar now.
Right. And some theories go further, suggesting a global elite, bankers and aristocrats, might artificially create a disaster
Why would they do that?
to justify rounding up and imprisoning U.S. citizens who might, object to their plans for control.
Okay, so manufactured crisis for mass incarceration, and the source mentions lists, red lists and blue lists.
Yeah, this comes from a fringe researcher mentioned in the material, Mary Louise. She claims FEMA maintains these lists.
What are they for?
A red list for people who would supposedly be executed immediately, and a blue list for those destined for camps, either for quarantine or re-education.
Executed. Re-education camps. I mean, that sounds extreme.
It does. And naturally, there's a lot of skepticism around these claims.
Like, what do the skeptics say?
Well, for one thing, pulling off a conspiracy like that, secret camps, lists, mass roundups, it would require an absolutely amazing, even implausible level of organization.
Right. Keeping something that huge secret seems almost impossible.
Exactly. How do you coordinate all that without massive leaks? Plus, skeptics argue that building temporary housing, even large facilities, makes perfect sense for handling major natural disasters. It's logical preparedness, not necessarily something sinister.
That seems reasonable.
The source material also brings up what it calls a foreboding fact, though,
Which is?
that the U.S. already has the world's largest prison population, over 2 million people incarcerated. That existing reality sometimes fuels these fears.
Ah, okay. So the scale of current incarceration makes the idea of future mass detention seem less far-fetched to some.
Perhaps. It's also noted that people who strongly believe in these FEMA camp theories often also subscribe to other conspiracies, involving the Illuminati or the Freemasons or even satanic plots.
So there's often an overlap in belief systems there. Okay, putting aside the skepticism for a moment, what specific government actions or facts do the proponents of these theories actually point to?
Well, they point to things like the federal government genuinely constructing massive housing facilities in various parts of the U.S. The source gives examples like Oakdale, California, and Atlanta, Georgia.
So large federal facilities do exist.
Yes. And they also highlight how various executive orders over the years have given agencies like FEMA increasingly broad emergency powers,
Like what kind of powers?
including powers that even allow the U.S. Army and the Marine Corps to perform domestic operations under certain emergency conditions.
Domestic operations, meaning acting within the U.S.?
Yes, and some researchers, like a Dr. John Coleman mentioned in the source, allege that FEMA's focus itself has shifted.
Shifted how?
He claims it's moved steadily away from natural disasters and more towards managing a potentially unruly populace.
Managing the population, not just responding to floods or hurricanes.
That's the allegation. And FEMA, becoming part of the Department of Homeland Security in 2003, is often seen by theorists as evidence of this shift in focus, a key moment.
Okay, so existing facilities, expanded emergency powers, a perceived shift in mission.
Right. And the material suggests that if you really want to understand these theories, you should take a look at the laws themselves.
Which laws specifically?
Things like Rex 84, which we mentioned. The Patriot Act extensions after 9/11.
Which expanded surveillance powers?
Exactly.
Oh.
Also, Operation Garden Plot, that's an old military plan for dealing with domestic civil disturbances, and the executive orders that actually created FEMA in the first place.
And theorists see these documented plans and laws as, what, proof?
As evidence, or at least, as the source puts it, only the tip of the iceberg, suggesting there's more hidden beneath the surface.
This brings us, I think, to one of the most concrete points of contention often cited, the ammo purchases.
Yes. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and all those bullets.
The numbers in our source material are pretty staggering. It says DHS bought 450 million bullets in March of one year,
Okay.
and then another 200 million that September. And this was apparently in addition to something like 1.6 billion rounds they already have.
Billion. With
Yeah.
a B. It's hard to even picture that quantity.
It is, and the source provides a comparison to put it in perspective. During the peak of the Iraq War,
Okay.
U.S. soldiers were using about 5.5 million rounds per month.
5.5 million a month in active war. So how does the DHS stockpile compare?
Well, if you run the numbers based on that usage rate, the implication is that DHS has acquired enough bullets to wage a full-scale war for the next 30 years.
30 years of war-level ammo.
Yeah.
Just for DHS.
That's the calculation presented.
Yeah.
Now, the explanations for why they bought so much,
Yeah.
they definitely clash.
What does DHS say?
DHS claims the bullets are needed for training, standard practice, bulk purchasing for efficiency, that sort of thing.
Okay. Seems plausible on the surface, buying in bulk.
Sure. But the source includes skepticism, specifically mentioning a military veteran named Richard Mason.
And what does he say?
He questions the type of ammunition. He's quoted saying, "We never train with hollow points in the military for standard practice."
Hollow points. Those are designed to expand on impact, right? More damaging.
Generally, yes. They're typically used for self-defense or in combat situations, not usually for routine target practice at the range.
So the veteran asks, why would they need all those hollow points if it's just for training?
Exactly. That specific detail fuels a lot of the skepticism and the alternative interpretations.
Which leads directly to the conspiracy view, I imagine.
Right. For those who are suspicious, this isn't about training at all. It's seen as our government buying up bullets to use against us.
Against citizens.
That's the fear, that these are true weapons of war being stockpiled for domestic purposes. It's a major flashpoint.
You can see why. The scale is massive, and the official explanation about training ammo types is questioned. Does the material offer any other, maybe less alarming reasons for the quantity?
The main counterargument presented is just the training need, perhaps pooling orders for various DHS agencies like ICE, Secret Service, Border Patrol, etc., leading to large numbers. But the source really focuses on highlighting the conflict itself, the official story, versus the deep suspicion and the questions raised by things like the hollow points. It doesn't really dive deep into alternative logistical breakdowns from DHS.
Got it. So it presents a controversy.
Yeah. And shifting gears slightly, the material also brings in some broader perspectives on government power and the Constitution, sort of framing these anxieties.
Like whose perspectives?
It quotes Judge Andrew Napolitano, for instance. He talks about the importance of defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution.
So a strong emphasis on constitutional limits.
Right. And interestingly, it contrasts that, or at least juxtaposes it, with a view attributed to Barack Obama about the Constitution.
What was his view, according to the source?
He's quoted calling it a remarkable document, definitely, but
Right.
an imperfect document that reflects some deep flaws in American culture.
Imperfect. That's an interesting framing in this context.
Yeah, the idea of the Constitution being imperfect or flawed might resonate with those who fear government overreach, suggesting the system itself might allow for abuses.
It adds another layer to the distrust, perhaps.
And then there's this other quote included, which is quite stark and often gets referenced in these discussions, though it's from a different context originally.
Which quote is that?
"We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America."
It's a very dramatic statement. Transformation.
It is, and the source material sort of culminates this whole section by posing a very direct, provocative question straight to you, the listener.
Yeah, what's the question?
Why do you think the U.S. government is stockpiling as much ammo and weapons as it can, while at the same time it's trying to take ours? Referring to gun control debates.
Ah, linking the ammo purchases directly to gun control efforts. That adds another dimension.
It definitely frames it starkly. So wrapping things up from this deep dive, we've really journeyed through a complex and often contradictory landscape of information.
We definitely have.
Started with those really chilling claims from the alleged ICE suicide note, the drills, the camps, the purge.
Yeah, then we broadened out to the wider theories about FEMA maybe being a front for a secret government.
Looked at the historical context, the expansion of executive powers, those actual government facilities.
And spent some time on those DHS ammo purchases. The sheer volume and the conflicting stories about why.
Right. So our goal here, just to reiterate, was to lay out the specific claims, the counter-arguments, the facts as presented in the source material we reviewed.
Exactly. To give you the different narratives, the different pieces of information so you can see what's being said without us pushing one viewpoint over another.
We're presenting the information from the sources for your own assessment.
And it leaves you with a pretty significant question to ponder, doesn't it?
It does. Which is maybe a good place to leave things, in this age of just constant information, constant updates, crises popping up.
Yeah.
How do we critically assess claims about what the government might be preparing for? How do you sort through it all?
And distinguish between what might be, sensible foresight and planning versus what might be just speculative fear or even disinformation.
Especially when the information you find can be so alarming on one hand, but also so contested and murky on the other.
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sifting through it all.
Definitely something to think about long after this deep dive is over.